All right, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Viking Codecast. I'm Erik Trautman, founder of Viking Code School, and this is a fully online, fully immersive program to teach everyone web development from zero to job. And basically, what we're doing here with Codecast is bringing in awesome developers and people who are in the tech industry to teach you who may or may not be learning how to code or somewhere on that spectrum or wanting to level up, teach you guys what life is like across the curtain and some interesting stories and hopefully tales of woe, tales of success, and advice from the other
You'll
end of the
cry, you'll laugh, it'll be awesome.
oh, the drama is incredible. and so here today with us, we have Randi Boice, who comes from a non-traditional background as well, as many of you do, and has through a very fascinating and meandering path found her way into Salesforce and working with all sorts of interesting tools which are relevant to certainly our immersive students here who are working on their final projects in sort of a Scrum-like fashion. Randy is working in such a similar sort of Scrum-like fashion, although with some important differences, which we'll highlight. And so first of all, thank you everyone for being here with us. Thank you, Randy, for being here with us. Of course, we couldn't do this without you. And so I guess what I'd be interested in kicking off with is just sort of where did you start and how did you get to where you are?
Okay, so I want to say, obviously, first of all, in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to be. I had likes in photography and art and geology and just the gambit. I was like, hey, maybe I'll be an actor because then I can be all these different people, right? No. But so I picked one. I tried going to college. I went for geology and photography. I couldn't afford it. So after about 6 months, I dropped out. I couldn't afford the books, so I was failing the homework anyways, and so I got a job working in a florist, and I was a landscape construction. I was basically, you name it, I did it. I did housekeeping. Eventually, I found preschool. I knew that I loved babysitting growing up, and I used to do a lot of the preschool in the churches. So I went that route, went and took a class, got certified as a preschool teacher, and then right as I was certified, right as everything was falling into place, I'd been doing this for about a year, I thought that this was what I was going to do. Because of that photography thing that I love, I took pictures in the woods and got bit by a tick. And then I got Lyme disease. And after many, many years of struggling to figure out what it was, I finally realized it was Lyme disease. But it meant I couldn't work as a preschool teacher anymore. So my doctor said if I had a desk job, I could keep working because it attacked my joints and I couldn't walk very well. So after the first month of being home without work and sick of all the stuff on TV, I picked up a book in my house that was HTML, CSS head first from O'Reilly. I read it. Went through the little things that they had in the book, did each of the exercises, and by the end of like 2 weeks, I had my first website up. It didn't take long. It was just CSS and HTML, right? No JavaScript, nothing cool. There was no server connected. I didn't even know how that worked. At the time, that concept of jQuery and server-side code, like the fact that you write this thing and it does something, was just, I couldn't handle that concept yet. Not there. So anyways, I realized that I could, do this desk job thing, right? It was okay sitting at the computer. It didn't hurt me so much. So I got a job at LogMe working customer support. And through that, they use Salesforce for their support implementation. And I noticed that it was taking a long time to do cases. I've always been kind of a very see a need, fill a need type of person. I see a problem, I want to fix it. Doesn't matter if it's my problem or not, that's what I do. I always done that. So I noticed that when I was going through these support cases, there was all these screen refreshes and all of these things, and I'm like, wow, if we didn't have this, it would probably take a lot less time for me to do a ticket. Like literally, the thing that was preventing me from getting tickets done faster was the UI I was working in. And I kept addressing this and saying, hey guys, look, I'm only able to do 100 cases per day because of this. I feel like if we were to make some of these, and I suggested a few improvements, I might be able to do this faster. And then they didn't have anybody to do that. So they're like, and they knew I was, looking into code and kind of learning on my own. They're like, well, hey, why don't we let you try on your own to fix these things? And so at first they let me do 50-50. I did half support, half support ops, and I would slowly start improving the case flow and learning how to code on the job in Salesforce language. And at first it took me like a week to do a simple like open in a new window, right? That took forever, and I felt terrible. And then obviously years later it takes seconds, right? But at the time it was like that's the progress I needed. And thankfully for me, I was able to work at a job like LogMeIn where they backed me and they let me have that opportunity to learn on the job. And then everything that I came across became a new learning experience. If it was a new API that needed to be connected, eventually I was at that level. It took a few years. But, you know, so I think after the first year of doing that 50-50 thing, they let me go full time. I got the case time down from 3 minutes per ticket to half a minute per ticket. I was able to prove to them with my own work that I can go from doing roughly about 100 tickets a day to 300 to 400 tickets a day. And that, you know, showed them that, hey, there's something to this. So they made me full-time as support ops, and you know, I worked closely within the support organization because I knew it. I knew all the pain points. It was the best. I could directly see my work affecting everyone around me. I also decided that since I was having trouble while I was learning how to code, I would blog about it. So that's how I created the Salesforce Girl blog, because I figured if I'm having trouble, someone else might. Few years later, I think I've been doing this for about 4 years, I get a random email in the mail from Facebook, or, you know, who I think is, I'm like, I have no idea, it just says at Facebook. And being a girl on the internet, you kind of gotta not so reply very fast. It took me about 3 days to be convinced it was actually Facebook, and they wanted me to interview. They found my blog, and they were curious. So I interviewed, and, you know, I wasn't looking to move. I lived in Boston at the time, you know, but hey, it's Facebook, why not? So I interviewed a few times. They had me on for an on-site interview, and then after a couple months, they shipped me across the country, and they moved me, and I worked there. Facebook was interesting. So having dropped out of college, I didn't have a very big college experience. So it was definitely very a lot of college people there, and just not the right atmosphere for me, I think. But I stuck it out a year. I went through their boot camp. Complex things besides Apex, because Apex is, you know, Salesforce language is definitely a very light language if you look at it compared to other things. But it's akin to Java, which again, light. I realized that I wanted to see what else there was to offer in, you know, Silicon Valley, and I went to a few startups from there. And each job I learned as I went. Every time taking every project and every opportunity to learn further. And then after the startup, eventually Salesforce came knocking, and they were kind of like, hey, we've noticed you've been kind of buzzing around our space. I was very popular at their Dreamforces. My Salesforce Girl was getting a lot of attention. I actually knew a lot of people internally through my Salesforce Girl because I was always reporting bugs to them. Like, regardless if it was something that was a bug in my own code or because of my code, I was able to, you know, like maybe they just released a new feature to their like the spring release, they had like a new knowledge thing. I would go and pioneer that with my code, trying to get it to work, and I'd find all bugs that were only bugs in the system, and I'd have to report to them to fix. And I loved that. It was so cool. And I've always worked in IT because of that, because of how many issues and bugs and how many problems are constantly plaguing IT. IT doesn't get any love. So I definitely found my niche in IT, but now I'm working for Salesforce. I'm like, I'm in the mothership, right? I got sucked up. It's awesome. I can affect change internally. It's amazing. Like, I thought there'd be so much red tape, and it's not. And I think the reason why it's not is because of my work ethic. And I'm going to really stress this. Every job that I've been to, regardless of my background, regardless of whatever, starting at LogMeIn, I've always been able to get custom niche projects or like be this one-woman team because I'm such a hard worker. I don't let it stop that it's not my job. I look into things that, you know, nobody would think of. Like, it's just like, hey, this is a problem. Why isn't anybody addressing this? And because I raised that and because I keep going after these things, people kind of like let you do that. They say, hey, this is like a force to be reckoned with. Let's just clear the way and let her do what she's going to do. And I kind of like that. I like that they can recognize that. Some people need to be in a team, and some people kind of can lead teams. And I think maybe that's where I'm falling right now. My current role at Salesforce, I got hired as a contractor mainly because I just had a baby, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back full-time. But I got hired as a contractor, and then after the first month, I knew it was where I wanted to be. They made me a SCRUM Master within the first month. I got made a test manager, or I forget what they called it, but basically in charge of like all the test suites and the QA stuff, at least for my team inside of Salesforce, even though I was a contractor. They quickly converted me to a full-time in July, and then I've been full-time ever since. But not that it mattered if full-time or contractor. They still treated me like a full-time. And so I went from a team of like 10 people, all the people on my team left. They like fired or left or just went to another team or another company, and they went all down to me, and which was fine, but you know, you can't do everything yourself. So I quickly found myself with the PO role, the BA role, the dev role, the QE role, and
that's a lot of acronyms.
Yes, and there are a lot of acronyms in every business, and every company has their own domain language, and acronyms are not the same across all companies. I hate it. But yes, there is a lot of acronyms in Salesforce, and any company. But anyways, I'm finding that as much as I like the PA and BO roles, I still love being a developer. I love being able to actually see my code like fix problems, or you know, like, although at the same time the PO role, the product owner role, which is the protector of the org, they're the one that's supposed to say, no, I don't want this in because you're going to screw up everything else we have in here, you know, stop that. And then there's the BA role, which is the business analyst. They're supposed to go in and, you know, talk with the business, see what they need, get their requirements, and then talk to the devs. And me playing all those roles makes it really nice, but at the same time I don't really get much done because stretched so thin. So it's, I don't know what that has to do with anything, but this is where I am now.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so I think we have a lot of interesting stuff that we can kind of dig into, and again, you know, there are a lot of things that you're doing right now. Yeah, I mean, sounds like you've touched a number of different areas of the organization, which is kind of what's really cool, and one of the reasons that it's exciting to talk to you here, and specifically working with the students right now. I think they're probably feeling like they're juggling all sorts of different roles in
well, and that's projects. Good though, because that means that you guys are T-shaped people, and I don't know if you know what T-shaped people are, but yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, even though your role is dev, you can fit the QE, or you can fit the BA, or you can, and those type of people are sought after in every company because you guys can fit to what's needed, and it's really good to be able to pivot and flex for whatever comes up, because trust me, it comes up.
So is there any way that you could maybe sort of highlight what the difference between someone who might just be I-shaped or L-shaped versus T-shaped would be, kind of practically speaking, in terms of?
Well, I mean, like, if you get a problem, right, and your normal skill set is, say, admin work, or maybe you're a BA, you're a business analyst, right? And your team is filled with devs, and they need help from you to maybe do some object changes, or, you know, do something that's not normally in your realm of, like, this is your job title, these are your roles that you do. You should be able to, as a T-shaped person, getting asked to help in something that you're not comfortable with, you would say, sure, let me see if I can do that. Even though it's going to take you 2 to 3 times to do something that's not in your comfort land, it's still going to be help compared to not doing anything and just saying, no, sorry, that's not my job. And you do get that occasionally. Or people just being unsure of themselves. They don't know if they can do it, and instead of trying, they just don't try. And you don't know how much you can accomplish if you simply try. And I just, it kills me to see that still. I'm like, come on, guys. What's going to happen if you fail? You're not going to get fired. You're not going to die. Like, it's just trying. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I wonder. Actually, you know what? I don't want to take over the conversation early. I want to give everyone a chance here to ask questions. And so, just as a note, we have the Q&A app here in Hangouts. So anyone who's viewing, feel free to ask questions via the Q&A app. It's the little light blue thing, little icon there, and we'll be able to see your question and address it. Otherwise, if you guys are anywhere else that we can hear you, ask Twitter, wherever. But for the folks who are inside here, feel free to unmute and ask any questions that you have. So I want to open things up right now for questions before I go running off in whatever directions my brain can figure out.
Silent
Okay.
is acceptance. Okay, there we go.
Hi again. So earlier you were talking about, well, I guess before we started this thing, for everyone out there, but there was Kanban as opposed to the agile Scrummy type workflow. I presume you worked in both. I was
Yes.
wondering, how's the transition? What do you like more about Kanban as opposed to like what problems did it solve the pain that you were feeling from the agile process? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe what the differences are too, so people can.
Sure. I mean, so from my end of things, sprints in general is a ton better than waterfall. So waterfall is that like, okay, we want to get this project done in a year, and here are all of our requirements in the beginning of the year, and we'll talk to you at the end of the year when it's done. And that sucks because things happen, things change in a year, nothing works, blah, blah, blah. So we go to sprint. And sprint means that every 2 weeks, there's going to be maybe a bunch of different size stories, depending on what velocity your team can do. So say if you're like a 2 or 3 person team, you may only be able to do a few stories. And then the velocity is, you point the stories. So if it's a small story, maybe 1 or 2 points. Or if it's going to take more than a day or two, maybe 3 points. If it's going to take like a week, 5 points. And it kind of goes from there. And those point systems is only applicable to your team. You can have any point system you want, really. Technically, to be truly agile, I'm sure there's some strict thing somewhere, but in reality, you can assign whatever value to those points that you want as long as you be consistent. But you have a story of points, and then you do this release planning, you do these backlog groomings, you look at all your stories, you clean through, and you say, okay, these people need, we have this sprint coming up, and we need these projects out, and these things are due by this priority, so let's assign these stories to these people, and you kind of go back and forth. And there's all these meetings around everything, getting everything done. I think that's the biggest headache for me around sprint, is all of the overhead of planning the sprints. What's nice about Kanban, and I don't know if I can show you an example board, but I would totally. I'm just afraid of what's on it. So, but Kanban is this great kind of flow. You start with a backlog on one side, a column, and then maybe you have a ready column. So these stories in the backlog are loosely fleshed out, and then the BA and the PO should be fleshing these stories out a bit more with details and put them in the ready column. And when it's in the ready column, a developer can pick up the story and put into the next column, maybe in progress or gathering requirements, and we kind of like flush the story through the process. So then he would put it into testing, and then into review, and then there's these columns. It's nice to visually see your stories in these statuses. It also means that since there's no planning or any of that kind of things, you're able to just take stories and go. You don't have all this overhead of these meetings, and the BA and the PO can handle that. Us as developers can get through the stories and get them done. It also means that things start to collect, so you have like this ready to test column, so then the QA people can pick it up and start testing it. There's all these other like kind of ready to, so for Salesforce, we have to push things from dev to QA, where we do all of our testing, like, so does this feature work, and the business will go in and actually test to make sure it's what they're expecting. Generally, it's kind of the PO that tests, but for my group, it's the business because we're so small. Then, once they give approval in the QA org, it gets pushed to the UAT org. This is a full environment with complete data and all that stuff, and these are all columns in the Kanban, so we can see the story as it gets pushed and gets approved. And then eventually, once it gets UAT approval from the business, that's final signs off, everyone says, okay, we've gone through extensive testing, it's all good, then it gets slotted for the next release, whenever that is. And that's why Kanban can kind of work a lot easier than, say, a sprint. Again, mostly for the fact that you remove all that overhead. And also, Kanban typically works a lot better with smaller teams if you want to kind of be more fast and agile. Sprint works a little bit better for larger teams, but I have seen Kanban work really well with large teams, but you kind of need to go through the Kanban training. There's some great stuff online you can look up, some games that I've actually had the privilege of playing. That Kanban game board, pretty cool. Almost like replaced my like love of D&D for a minute, just a minute. But it really, I almost wanted to make the game into a program, like an app you could do with friends. Like, it was so fun, and I'm like, this is so stupid that I'm having so much fun with a Kanban game. But it was awesome. So, I mean, I don't know. That's why I like Kanban.
Nerds of the world unite.
Right?
Cool. What did you use over Facebook?
Facebook, We technically use sprints, but I forget what system we had set up. Like in Salesforce, we have our own Gus system. It's like we developed this huge system. I forget what we used there, but we had something. Mm-hmm. And I think you said something earlier that sounded like it, but I don't remember. It's been a few years. It's been like 4 years now.
Ancient history.
World to remember.
So one of the advantages of working in a Scrum-based system is the idea of estimation, right? That you sort of collect the story points, you get your velocity, and then based on your velocity, you can figure out, okay, how long is it going to take us to work through our backlog? How long will this release take to? You
can still story point Kanban stuff.
Okay, so how does that story pointing process work in
It's Kanban? The same as in sprints, but instead of doing like a velocity, it's just kind of like, this is a big story, so it's going to take it a little bit more time. And so it kind of sits in some of those columns a little bit longer. But I don't know, I haven't really gotten to the point where you do that sort of planning based off velocity with Kanban. We're still just, as much as we can push into a release, we get in there. We're flying at the seat of our pants a little bit.
It's the only way to live.
At least for my group, because again, like I said, we have to be fast, we have to be agile. We can't we're just too small. We don't have enough manpower to follow every little process.
Can you actually give some examples of specifically what types of problems your group is solving? So maybe kind of hone it in a little bit more in terms of what are your fires?
My group is in charge of one of like the central arteries of Salesforce. So the org that I'm in charge of is all of the support-centric cases. They all get routed in through my org. So anytime someone does a help desk ticket or submits for a new asset or anything, the org that I'm in is kind of like the catch-all org for all these random apps. So a lot of the problems I come across usually is due to the fact that for this particular org, it's just really old. So because it's like 10 or so years old, a lot of people kept putting stuff into it and not taking stuff out. The org is kind of at its limits, literally. It's like busting at the seams and so I always like to think of it as like a rusty bucket, right? Like it's an overflowing rusty bucket. The water's coming out of the sides and the top. But so my main goal right now for at least my group is we're trying to clean out. We have tons of tech debt. We have tons of keeping the light on stuff. We have to go through those case triggers that have been just like they put way too much logic in it without, again, removing any of the logic. So when, say, a case gets updated or inserted, there's all this logic that happens, and depending on certain fields, depending on certain record types, it needs to follow these processes. But the problem is that in Salesforce land, they have governor limits. You can only do like a certain amount of SQL queries per transaction, a certain amount of records can come down, and so we're hitting these governor limits constantly because there's just, it's like this transaction just keeps continuing as they expand these triggers instead of, say, pushing one to a future method so it doesn't happen at the same time as the other ones. There's all these type of balances. Another problem that is a big issue is data integrity. I'm always having issues where this would have worked if the data wasn't broken. So instead of, unfortunately, I found in my job it's easier to code around the user errors than expect the user to do something correctly. So a lot of my stuff kind of does things for the user, anticipating what the user might want to do, and then kind of not allowing them to put in too much free thought. I'll have triggers or validation that will prevent them from doing certain values, or maybe only allow them to pick from a pick list, or compare. It's data integrity has to be one of the biggest issues that we come across a lot. And you wouldn't think it would be, but the code relies on the data. You need the code to display the data correctly, and because of the data, certain things will display or certain things won't display. And if the data's not right, then all hell goes to loose. I can give you more specific examples, though. Like, for instance, some of the stuff that I do isn't required, right? I am a very see a need, fill a need type of person. So I was looking for, we have vending machines in our many Salesforce offices, and they have IT equipment in them, like mouses or keyboards or screen protectors or phone, whatever. And so the problem that I noticed is that, A, we don't know where these vending machines are half the time. There's no like kind of centralized list or some sort of map where you could be like, hey, I'm in this building, where are all the vending machines so I can find this thing. The next problem I noticed is that even if you find a vending machine, you don't know if it's going to be carrying the item that you want. So then you could waste your time going to this building, going up to this floor to find this vending machine that doesn't even have something you want, or if it does have it, maybe it's out of stock. So what we can do is, because when you go to purchase things out of the vending machine, you have to use your badge. That's putting a line in the database that says this employee with this badge bought this item for this amount from this machine. We can take that data and then analyze it and say, okay, we'll create a vending machine object and we'll put assets into the object so we know what items are in the vending machines. And then as the employees purchase, we'll subtract from those items and be able to say, hey, this vending machine seems to be going low, or hey, this vending machine is getting a lot of purchases for this particular item. Maybe we should stock more of it, or stock it more recently or frequently. So there's a lot of things like that you can solve if you just connect the data. So that's one that I'm actually going to be working on in a hackathon soon. So.
We promise this won't be broadcast on the internet.
Right. Oh well.
Thanks. Yeah, that's actually really helpful for kind of showing how you can take the practical dev skills in an organization and solve actual problems instead of just sort of nebulous.
I was sick of going to vending machines and not finding what I wanted. So I tracked down the asset management team, and I know that the assets are stored in my org because my org is the catch-all org. So I know that I can affect this change. Which is great. I love working in IT because you can affect so much. There's so much around the company that needs help. I mean, think about when you're walking around your school right now. At Facebook, what was great is they had these monitors with maps, and you could literally go, show me all the restrooms on this floor, show me all the vending machines on this floor, or you could search a person and see where they sat on the floor. You could see all the conference rooms. It was great having these little digital maps everywhere that you could interact with and figure out where you needed to go. They need something like that here. Soon.
So what sorts of technologies do you find yourself working with the most? I mean, like programming languages and
For me, it's Salesforce, which is the Apex language, and then of course they utilize HTML and CSS. And I know that nowadays people don't really use HTML and CSS. They use JavaScript and they spit out the HTML and CSS on the page via that. That's kind of like the new current way to do things. Using HTML and CSS is kind of like a old school 90s way of programming now, I guess.
Jeez, it's already dead.
I know, right? I'm like, geez. But you still use it in the JavaScript, so I'm like, hey, it's still relevant. You just spit it on the page with JavaScript first. I don't know. But so no, I do use a lot of JavaScript because you do have to do a lot of validation in the UI, and you can only do so much with the backend. And then with Salesforce language particularly, we do a lot of API connections. So we'll go to Google Maps API or anything else. We also connect into databases. Like say we need to have so for instance the employee badge all the employee data is stored in this this other database system. It's not stored in my org, but my org needs to use that data. So we have to connect through the SQL Server to bring that data and do a constant sync. So whenever someone gets hired, fired, or updated, my information in my org can get updated so that all of my stuff can work. Because I have things in my org where it's you need to submit for an approval to your manager, but what if your manager isn't your manager anymore? You need to make sure you're going to the right manager. What if your manager or you no longer work for the company? That needs to be all brought down. If we also need to kick off the return of your assets, right? There's tons of stuff, and there's always doing connections all around data.
Data.
I know. I'm I didn't know I was a database person and working in this land. I was like, wow, the data's awesome.
So I wanna ask around for more questions. Students, viewers, random people of the internet, denizens of the internet. What do you have for us? What questions do you have?
I have a question. So you've great story, by the way, with the whole narrative. Basically, have you dealt with the imposter syndrome and the Dunning-Kruger effect? Basically, have you during your transition into the tech as a software engineer, have you developed or felt at moments where are you good enough, or kind of thing, or have you were there some times where you thought you were better than what you actually are,
Yeah.
at that moment?
Yeah, no, and I can get real with you for a second. When constantly, even today, I still feel like I'm not good enough. I know my strengths, but when it comes to real hardcore code, because I don't have that traditional uh, computer science background, I don't have all those basic building blocks that most people have. There's some things that I struggle with that most people don't. And so I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to not let that insecurity show. I'm trying to, as soon as I do see something that I don't know about, I try to learn about it. Of course, you don't always have time because there's always so many pressing other things. But yeah, no, definitely. So actually, after I left Facebook, because again, I'm so much of a Salesforce software engineer more than a regular software engineer that I interviewed at Twitter. And when they went to the code challenge and they started asking me these questions, because I don't know the terminology, like he asked me, now I could do it. But 4 years ago, he was like, oh, can you write this function? And he used these terms that, again, now I would probably be able to know. But at the time, I didn't know what those terms meant. And so I was like, I'm like, can you ask me in a different way? Like, I can do it. I just don't know how to do it. It's like, when you have a math problem and they give it to you in a word problem versus a math problem, I could always do the number problem easier than the word problem because for whatever reason it was harder to understand that way. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you.
But yeah, no, I'm.
How do you fix it?
Struggling with that.
how do you hack your psychology to get around that?
In the sense of just knowing that you're always learning. I don't know. I've always had this. Maybe it's the Japanese culture, or that you never master anything, right? So you're always a student, learning. There's always something new that's coming out. You can't say, "Oh, I'm done. I've learned it all." So I don't really think there's much psychology managing there. More of just I haven't gotten there yet. And I tell people all the time that because of how I learned based off of projects. So if I hadn't gotten that project yet, I won't know how to do it yet. Just takes me getting that project and I'll figure it out.
Cool.
Any other questions from in here?
I think mostly, I don't know. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I mean, and if you're in school, you have all that opportunity, all those mentors, all those people. I don't know. I love advocating for people that, you can do anything you put your mind to. It's just a matter of drive, passion, and commitment, right? If you don't have those things, it's not going to get done. I have tons of stuff I'd love to do. Flowing or I don't know, I could name a ton of stuff, but it's just you don't have time. I'd love to learn musical instruments, I'd love to go, all this stuff, but unless I actually dedicate myself to it, it's not going to happen, and that's the same for anybody.
So I have a question coming in on the Q&A app here, so let me just read that. It's in your opinion, why is blogging and engaging the public as a developer now versus even 5 years ago relevant and professionally useful? I'm thinking about introverts who may and often do balk at sharing who they are beyond their GitHub profile.
I mean, it's super useful, right? Because of my networking, I was able to land a job at Facebook. Because I was out there on social media marketing myself, branding myself as Salesforce girl, and kind of being out there as I'd be on the forums helping to answer questions, just having that public presence or showing hey, I found an answer to this, and I know it's uncomfortable. My husband, he doesn't like blogging. He doesn't like he has to reread things 20 times, and then he still doesn't like it. So I definitely get the insecurity level that can happen with blogging, or people who may or not as able to put themselves out there. But in this day and age, you need to market yourself. You need to brand yourself. It sucks. We're all our own marketing teams. You are your own advocate when it comes to your health or your business or whatever. You need to advocate for yourself, and you need to show the world what you can do. And the best way to do that is with all the internet stuff you can do nowadays, right? And if you're not comfortable as yourself, maybe do it anonymously, but start. Do one blog post and then see where it goes.
Thank you. Actually, related to that, obviously you mentioned that people that you were able to get on the radar by doing things like submitting tickets for releases that came out and things like that. If you're able to put yourself in the shoes of students who maybe don't have a long or deep background in some specific technology, but who are trying to get on the radar of people like yourself in organizations to sort of stand out and highlight, that even though they're from a non-traditional background, they still have like hunger and skills and they're
Well, for
they're
Facebook,
how can they do that?
part of the reason why Facebook found me is because when they Googled Apex developer or Apex development or whatever problem they're looking for, my name came up in those search results. So if there's something that they're passionate about, or if there's a company they're trying to get interested in, they need to make sure that if they blog or they talk about it, like I don't know, like that's how Facebook found me, is because it's like if that's something that you do and they Google it and you show up, they're going to pay attention to you. Although I don't know if you can Google, I don't know what they would be Googling, like JavaScript or what kind of code? I mean,
I don't know.
You don't have to have a niche, though. It just happens that because I was in that niche, Salesforce developers are just always in demand. They're this weird niche that nobody wants to do. Nobody wants to be a Salesforce developer because of how short the language is in the sense of your ability to do things. So just kind of lucked out.
So have you noticed anything from people who are like applying for jobs or who come across your radar somehow that they've been able to do to get on your radar that maybe wasn't just dropping a resume at the door?
They comment stuff. Again, like if there's a like I know what's that great forum site that they have. I can't remember the name of it because Salesforce has its own version. Anyways, there's this great code forum where you can go and post questions and stuff, but that's what I'm saying. They have to comment and reply and try to help. Or maybe if they see an issue or they see something, like say you're working in, like somebody made something on GitHub and you're utilizing their code to do something and you want to get on their radar, maybe you want to work in their company, whatever, start contributing, start commenting, start saying, hey, I noticed this problem, like what can we do to solve it? Or come up with a solution instead of just saying all the problems, come up with your own solutions. And that in itself was like, hey, they're not just reporting issues, they're trying to solve them. And that to me stands out. You're not a part of the problem, you're part of the solution. But other than that, I guess in the photography world, people get my attention by they message me or they comment to me or they'll show me a picture that they've done and I'll kind of look and see, and if they have a similar style, I might talk to them a little more. But it's different than code.
Well, that actually brings up another interesting point, which is that you've obviously got a variety of different interests, and you have a professional job where you talk about you're working your butt off all day, but you're also able to kind of balance things and
sort of.
One thing, do many things, whether or not that feels like balance or not. How do you actually balance your life with your hobbies, with developing? What is like?
It takes a lot of time, and it's really hard to learn that balance. You need to know your priorities. First priority is yourself. Period. Your health, yourself. Then your family. And they need to keep that in check. When I was working at Facebook, my priorities got screwed because I was so focused on working at Facebook and getting all these things done, and just so absorbed in the race to get the code done that I wasn't paying attention to my family. I wasn't kind of doing all the other things. I got burnt out very fast. So then when I went to the next few jobs, I kind of learned a little bit better balance. I was able to say, okay, even though I really love doing my photography, right now my job pays the bills, so I need to put more energy into that and until it kind of quiets down, and then I can pick up the photography again. Or whatever. Like if my son is sick, he takes precedence over work. I will call out. I don't care what's going on at work. That's more important to me. And I have this conversation with my manager a lot. Even though, say, you have three things, you have family, you have yourself, and you have, work or whatever, how many other things you have, you can't give 100%. It's just not possible. You don't have 300 or 400% of yourself to give. So you have to divide yourself up. And for someone like me who doesn't want to do that and wants to do it all, I tend to burn out a lot. But I try not to. I'm getting this past year has been really good. I haven't burned out so much. It's been great. But it's a very fine line of a balance to dance, and really you have to be able to listen to yourself and your body to know when, hey, this maybe I should take a step back And it's again, it's that check. It's okay. No one's gonna die. No one's gonna, kill you, or you know what I mean. Like, it's not that big of a deal if you can't get it all done. It's okay. Like, and that kind of check prevents me from stressing out, like, completely. Just like, like, okay, no, it's fine. It's really not that big of a deal. Not that big of a deal. I'm cool.
I used to work with a Marine who, in a very stressful environment, and when things started hitting the fan, he always used to say, "You know what? This is still a lot easier than getting shot at."
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So how do you recognize and solve burnout?
That's hard. I'm sure it's different for everyone. I don't know how to solve it. I guess a break, vacation, shut down. That's the only way I've been able to kind of come back for it. But that's obviously not the best thing. You wanna see it before it happens. I think for me, if I notice I'm reaching for a glass of wine a little bit earlier than I normally do, or a little bit more than I normally do, then I kind of like, hey, maybe I should, think about why I'm reaching for that glass of wine a bit more than I normally do. Or if I'm a bit testy, I also find that I'll be short, or I don't sleep as well because I'm so just absorbed with everything going on in my life. So it's all those normal signs of stress, right? And then it's kind of like you're burnt out when you practically just can't bring yourself to get anything done. Like, you don't mind that your phone has 50,000 messages. You're done. You just can't do it anymore. You're done. You don't care what happens. And you never want to get there. It's such a terrible, terrible place to be.
But do you have strategies for coping with that?
Yeah, find a happy place. Find lots of things that make you happy. Relax. Again, let go. It's not the end of the world. Find people that make you happy, and I severely suggest turning all of your devices off for a few days and just kind of getting back into center. I don't know if anyone practices kind of mindfulness or anything like that, but some meditation and just really, again, checking your priorities. And that always helps me, because then I'm like, it's just work. I can always find another job. I can always do other things. It's not a big deal. I still have my family. I have me and my health, for the most part. Besides the Lyme disease.
Oh, well. Any other questions from the audience here? I want to hear what you guys want to know.
Yeah, I had another question real quick. So like along your, I guess, career, did you have any forks in your road where like you knew that you wanted to be a developer for sure, as opposed to like maybe you could be a support person, not 100%, or like a product manager or something like that?
Yeah.
Were you presented forks, and how did you deal with that?
I'm facing a few forks right now. But in the past, right when I was still working at LogMeIn, my photography was really doing a lot of weddings and a lot of stuff like that. And I kind of had this decision where I'm like, okay, I could stop what I'm doing right now and I could pursue the photography and see how that goes, or I can continue to code. And for me, I realized that the more weddings I did, the more I hated photography. And the more code I did, the more I loved my job. I loved seeing that result, that just, I don't know, there's something about working in code and just debugging and logic and architecting solutions and seeing how the code flows, and I love that. I love digging out. So it was kind of an easy choice then. Now, however, I'm coming to the point where I'm a team lead. I don't get to dev as much as I used to, and there's an opportunity for me to be the PO, since we're missing one, or to continue to be this dev lead and kind of do that thing. And I'm not sure if I kind of tried doing some of the PO stuff, and it is a lot of meetings, and it's a lot of have to be strong, and you have to kind of wade through the shit a bit, kind of messing with the business, and they're going to say my priority, my project is better, but other people are going to say no, my stuff's better, and then they'll start CCing their managers and bosses and VPs, and then it's just this big war of who has the bigger VP CC to get their shit done. And I don't really think I want to do that. So I think the best thing to do is, like, if you have the opportunity to try that path, that you might take, like even just for a little bit, you can see usually if you like it or not. Forget if it pays more. Forget those type of things. What do you like doing? Because this is your time that you're spending, on. You can't get time back. You can't buy time. You can't, So if you're going to do something for your life, for your, the majority of your life, pick something that you enjoy, regardless of how it pays.
Great answer. Thank you.
Other questions in the universe?
Is there questions? What? I don't see anything.
No, I don't think so. All right. Cool. Well, so I think my last question for you is, if you are in this situation, the scenario where these fine folks are, maybe that's at very early in the journey. Obviously, we have a pretty diverse audience here. We've everyone from people who are considering the switch into development up to people who are right now actively applying for jobs as developers. I don't know, just sort of what advice would you give yourself if you were in those shoes?
The best thing to do, if you're considering development, do you like it? Do you like problem solving? Do you like puzzles? Do you like, seeing, it's pretty amazing. It's actually a really awesome creative thing. Like, as an artist, as a photographer, I feel like developing and coding is like the ultimate expression. You can do whatever your imagination gives you, and, limits within the coding frame, whatever. But for the most part, you can really do so much. And it just this awesome instant gratification of a palette. You have to wait for the paint to dry. You don't have to, you know what I mean? Like, you can do so much with it. And I think, like, even doing really cool hacks with CSS or JavaScript, making like cool little, Flash, anything in the coding realm is pretty fucking amazing. But if you're looking for a job in the coding realm, the best thing that you can do as a person when you're applying for a job is you want to be the type of person that will solve any problem. You don't want to be, again, an I-shaped person. You want to show the employer that you're willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done, to figure it out, and you're willing to do more than what you're hired for. I don't know how to exactly say to convey that, but, in my interviews, I tell them all the time, I'm like, look, I see a need and I fill the need. If there's something broken, I want to fix it. It's just how I work, and they kind of can see that from how I talk. I'm very passionate. I lead people. If nobody's willing to take the lead, I'll take it, even if it's in the wrong direction. At least we're going somewhere. But it's progress to a point, But no, I mean, if you really kind of show that passion in the interview, you show that you can figure it out. Even if you don't know it, you can figure it out. And people love that. They love that you're not constrained to this box, this thing. You can do whatever they need, and that means that you could be their ace in the hole. And they love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I think that takes us to the end here. Randi, I really appreciate you spending your time with us here on a fine Tuesday evening in the Bay Area, and to everyone else who's able to make it out, regardless of what time it is, especially if you're in Australia, as I know at least one of you is. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for hanging out.
Thanks for asking questions, yo.
Everyone, you can tune in next week as well. Codecast is every Tuesday. So everyone, thank you guys, and have a great night.
Thank you, Randi.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.